Since 2018, I made over $5 million using a business model that's similar to the colleges and universities, but something that they don't want you to know about. And it's way more profitable. And what's even crazier is I started with negative $38,000 ending the 2017 year. And I'm going to share it all with you. The good, the bad, the ugly, how I got my first client, how I lost $62,000 in one day from bad clients, how my business currently generates over $200,000 a month, and most importantly, how you can do the same. My name's Justin Saunders, and this is my story. Going back into 2017, that was the year I actually graduated from the University of Kentucky. And this was a very interesting time in my life because at the time when I was in college, I was social chair. So I was constantly going out and hanging out with friends all the time. And for me, I had to reshape my identity. And when I graduated college, my parents actually let me stay in a house that they were renovating, which was really nice at the time. But looking back on it, it's probably one of the hardest moments of my life because it was one of those houses that was, getting renovated. The ceilings were leaking. There was mold in places. It was just not a very great spot to be, but it taught me the lesson of hard work because I knew I wanted to get the fuck out of there as fast as I could. And also at this time is when I decided to go all in on entrepreneurship and being my own boss. And at this time, I didn't have any income. I think the only money I had was when my parents signed me a check as a graduation present for $1,000, which I ended up blowing about a week later on just some dumb shit at the bars, to be honest with you. So I was literally starting from zero. I had $0 in my bank account, and what I ended up doing was taking out a couple credit cards, personal credit cards, to learn information, buy courses, buy mentorship, and things like that. And at the time, ending 2017, I had negative $38,000 in my bank account because I was just charging everything towards credit. And this was a time in my life where, for the first time, I've actually had a lot of people doubting me. And it even got to the point where I lost all the friends that I was hanging out with at the time. And even my girlfriend at the time, we ended up breaking up because we didn't see eye to eye on some things. And I think a lot of this entrepreneurship route, is really portrayed on social media because you get a lot of hate. I'll never forget there was one time I was at my ex-girlfriend's lake house and her cousin was there and she told me, she's like, yeah, I've been seeing your YouTube videos. And at the time I was like, oh, that's awesome. And immediately she goes, yeah, and honestly, they fucking suck. Like, you're really awkward and weird. And I just look at her, I'm like, I don't want to be around these type of people. Like, I know they're not great right now. They're going to be great in the future, but I don't want to be around these people. And at the time, that's when, me and the ex-girlfriend at the time just split. And at that moment in my life was when I could actually go all in on everything that I wanted to do. So at this point, I tried everything. I started my own brand known as Real Limits. I'll drop a little photo up right there. That didn't last very long. And then I got into drop shipping, trying to sell everything you could possibly think of. Here's a picture of like my first sales, which when I first got this, I thought I was on top of the world. Needless to say, I didn't actually make any money with this because the profit margins were so low. And then also at this time, I was trying everything else. I remember trying Forex. I tried getting into real estate, and then I was also doing social media marketing. That kind of ended the 2017 year, and I'll go over some of the big lessons I learned from that, but that really transitioned into 2018, where things really started to click. And the thing that really changed my life was I wrote a contract to myself saying that I was going to focus on one thing and go all in for the next 90 days. And if I didn't, I would have to donate every single dollar that I made to a homeless shelter. And I remember writing everything down on a piece of paper. I wrote down Forex, I wrote down agency, I wrote down drop shipping, I wrote down real estate, and there was probably like 3 other things I wrote down too, but I slowly started crossing them off on what I wanted to see my future at. This is the first time in my life where I actually looked at where the future could take me and what the future actually promised. After crossing off everything, I ended up circling SMMA and went all in on running a social media marketing agency. So I started my first company known as New Age Media, and at the time I was working with everybody. The one thing I did know from college and my previous experience is I had a job selling door-to-door print and digital ads. That was back in like 2016, and I used those skill sets in 2018 to really get this agency going. So at the time, I'm in Kentucky, Cincinnati area, like right on the border. And I remember every single day I would take my car, I'd park it in like a big busy area and just walk from door to door to door to door and try to sell people digital marketing services. And then finally, after a couple of weeks of just door knocking, I got a chiropractor to agree to let me run marketing services for them. And I remember at this time, it was a $1,500 check and I thought I was on top of the world. I immediately went out and spent the money on a brand new TV and then put the rest into credit card payments that were overdue. Needless to say, this was my first client and things did not go as I expected. I overpromised everything and completely underdelivered, and they were not a very happy client to end the relationship. But from there, I realized that I could take what I was doing in the door-to-door space and then go all in online and start prospecting people online and get way more lead flow in such a short amount of time. So I started prospecting clients online. And by the way, this is the easiest way to get clients. If you're not getting clients online right now, you 100% need to be doing this. And what I did was I started branding my social medias as like my resume, posting results, posting educational topics. And what I would do is every single day I would go and I would add 10 to 20 new friends that are in that particular industry. So let's say hypothetically, they are all chiropractors. I would go add 20 new chiropractors every single day. And then I would send them a customized video pitching them my services. And that started working really well. I was actually able to start getting some clients. I got actually my first 10 clients like really quickly through this process. And then from there, I realized that the branding, like putting myself out there, like my resume online, like talking about these educational videos started really grabbing a lot of attention. So I started doubling down on the branding side. And soon enough, one of my good friends from college that I tried to be a business partner with at the time in real estate hit me up. He's like, hey, we've got a mutual friend that I want to connect you with. I think you guys could kind of kick it off with. And, at this time, I'm like, all right, cool. Well, let's see, because I was so used to just so many people just like doubting me. And like, I didn't think there was much more in the world of like people really making it in the online space. So he connected me with one of my friends and one of my best friends today. His name is Jeff Seckinger, who was living in Columbus, Ohio at the time. And Jeff hit me up. He's like, yo, come down to Columbus. Let's talk business, see what we can do. So I remember, this is like fresh right off that breakup. So it wasn't too long ago. And I was like, all right, cool. I sent it down to Columbus to meet up with Jeff. We went to a coffee shop and just talked. And for me, this was the first time ever where I could finally find somebody that was doing something that I did and have a meaningful conversation with. And, we just kicked it off. I remember talking just all these business ideas. And at the end of the conversation after the coffee shop, we're like, yo, let's just move in together. Because at the time I was straight off that breakup. Jeff was actually getting out of rehab. If you know Jeff, he has a crazy story, super successful guy now, but we were both basically starting from scratch and we had nothing to lose at the time. So we got on some of those bird scooters and just scooted around town and looked for some places to get a sublease on. And we went 100% all in on our businesses, saying no to everything that wasn't in line with what we wanted. So we were really branding ourselves at this point, and I was doing interviews inside a Facebook group that I created, which kind of ended everything going in 2018. Is I had a guest speaker on my interview known as Ravi Abivala, who's also one of my best friends to this day. And it all started with an interview. At this time, Ravi was also in the same business that we were in, but doing it longer than us. And, I think at that time I was doing maybe like 5 to 10K a month, and he was doing like 30K a month. I got him on an interview and we kind of kicked it off too. He invited us to go to this mastermind, which I'll drop a photo above too. And to be honest with you, this one mastermind completely changed my life because a couple things happened. One, I was really branding myself hard. I didn't sell like any info products online at this time, but I was building up a launch to launch right before I went to this event, because mainly I wanted to be able to afford this event as well. So I remember launching my first ever info product through my Facebook group. It was like a 4-day launch. Sales just went crazy. It was a $97 product with, I believe, a $47 order bump. And I just remember waking up in the middle of the night to sale after sale after sale after sale. And, I woke up the next day to my first ever $4,000 day. And to me at that time, I was just blown away. $4,000 to me at that time was a lot of money. And I remember just thinking in my head, I'm like, wow, I can actually do this. And that kind of transitions into that mastermind event that we went to that Ravi invited me and Jeff to go to. It was actually a mastermind by a guy named J.R. Rivas, and he was teaching how to make money online. And at this mastermind, we rented out this, at the time, I thought it was a huge house, but looking back on it, I'm like, I would never stay there even if you paid me, to be honest with you. But it was this big house that we rented out with like 15 plus other entrepreneurs doing the same stuff as us. And I'll never forget walking into that house, just like the energy and the vibe and the environment of everybody doing the same type of stuff, but just in different levels, just completely opened up my eyes. And at the time, there was other guys there doing 30, 50K months. And, I'm coming off of like a 5 to 10K month, and I see all these other people doing it. It was like an open experience where I was like, wow, if they can do this, I can do this. So right after that mastermind, to kind of end the 2018 year, Ravi hit me and Jeff up and was like, hey, you guys are the only guys I know that don't have to be at a job every day of the week and can just travel whenever you want. I've got this villa in Cabo for a week. It's during New Year's. Do you guys want to come out? And me and Jeff looked at each other, we're like, hell yeah, we'll go to Cabo. So we sent it to Cabo, kicked it off. Me, Jeff, and Ravi just became really good friends ever since that point. And then right after that, leaving Cabo, we went to San Diego just to visit, and we all built our businesses out there for about a week. And then as we were out there, we're like, yo, what if we just got a spot out here? So me, Jeff, and Ravi decided that we wanted to get a spot in San Diego. So we left San Diego about 3 weeks later. And then about 1 to 2 months later, we found a spot in San Diego. Me, Jeff, and Ravi signed the lease. And then me and Jeff left Columbus. I believe Ravi was in Europe at the time. And we just sent it to this new house. And this was like the entrepreneurship house. This is where we were all focused, growing our own businesses. And it was probably one of the most fun times of my entire life. So at this point, it's around 2019. Me, Jeff, and Ravi are living in San Diego, and we're really branding ourselves hard. We're actually traveling a lot too. And at this point, this is when I bring on my first ever sales rep, which funny story with this is I actually brought on, it was one of my good friends, Joe. Joe was actually my boss at my job in college, and we just stayed in contact. And basically one day I hit him up. I was like, yo, what are you doing? He's like, kind of in between jobs right now. I was like, hey, why don't you just kind of sell for me? Would you be interested in that? He's like, yeah, hell yeah, let's do it. And I'll never forget, this moment was another big moment in my life where a lot changed mentally. And me, Jeff, and Ravi were out in Mammoth Lake snowboarding for a week. I gave Joe the first ever sales call. And this was right before I hired Joe. And I was like, hey, I got some sales calls on the calendar. Do you just want to take them? He's like, yeah, let's do it. So I'll never forget, I was actually learning how to snowboard at this time, but I was on top of the mountains in Mammoth Lakes, California, snowboarding. And I got an alert on my phone saying $2,000 Stripe notification. And I just remember looking at Ravi and Jeff. I'm like, bro, what? Like, I just closed a $2,000 deal without doing anything, just snowboarding all day. That was the big moment, because I also, at this time, I paid Ravi a decent amount of money to teach me everything that he knew. And that was a lot of the stuff that he taught me, was like how to build an actual team to run an agency on autopilot. So we really started growing the agency from there. And, at this point, ending 2019, I think the agency was doing around 40 to 50K a month. I brought on a client success manager so she could manage the clients that we're bringing in. Because again, for me at the agency, I just wanted to, my main thing was just I wanted to automate this. And I'll tell you the big lesson learned later in this video about like automating too early. But at the time, everything was good. I had a sales rep, I had a client success manager, and I just learned how to do paid ads to really scale this thing up. So, we were consistently bringing in $40,000 to $50,000 every single month from chiropractors that wanted to have marketing services in their business. And at this point, everything was going really well. And then the C word happened in the world, and everything shut down.
A SARS-like virus, which has infected hundreds in China, has now reached the United States.
New Jersey today becoming the 6th state to close all non-essential businesses, joining California, New York, Illinois, Pennsylvania, and Nevada.
I'll never forget, about 2 weeks after everything shut down, I looked at my Stripe account and I had chargeback after chargeback after chargeback after chargeback of all these chiropractors freaking out because they thought it was the end of the world. Everybody did at the time. I'll never forget, I lost $68,000 in 24 hours just from this moment of the world shutting down and chiropractors freaking out. So at this point, we're going into 2020, and it was good timing for all this because I could just focus on what I wanted to do. And I had a lot of people still asking about how to build an agency because I did it successfully. I actually built one up to $50,000 a month with outside circumstances with the world ending. People were asking me, so I was building a back-end offer known as High Ticket Freedom, teaching people how to run an agency. And at the time, I was actually making more money with the consulting side of stuff, but I realized to myself, I'm like, well, if I'm going to be teaching people how to do this, I still need to be doing it to be up to date with the trends. So we shifted into a stem cell agency and completely scaled that business model up really quickly. I think our biggest month inside the stem cell was probably around 60 to 70K months. And that was my main focus for 2020, is just building the agency and then building my consulting offer, which kind of took us into 2021, where I got tired of living in California because the state kept shutting down, opening up, shutting down. And the whole reason I got into business and lived in California was for the freedom. So I left San Diego and went to Miami, where I lived for about 2 years from there. So this is about 2021, where I'm in Miami. And when you live in Miami, guess what happens? Your living expenses skyrocket. So, California was pretty high for the normal type of person, but Miami was even higher than San Diego, especially with my living style at the time. So I was really dialed in on just making money at this point. I was really focusing on building up this high ticket coaching offer. And then I was also building an agency. And at the time with the agency, we were making some pivots because fulfillment wasn't the best with stem cells and we couldn't really continue growing. So what we ended up doing was building another agency in the solar space. And this is when I actually partnered up with Joe 50/50 on a partnership to build a solar agency. And we blew this thing up really quickly. We took it from 0 to $500,000 in just 10 months. I actually have a YouTube video documenting all of it. I'll leave a link if you want to check that out. It'll look like this. And I was also really focused on my consulting offer at this point. So I believe the solar agency was doing roughly around 50 to 90-ish K a month at this point. And then I had my consulting that was doing anywhere between like 15 and 30K a month. And then I realized at this point, things were just getting a little bit ridiculous. I had 2 different agencies. I had 1 consulting offer. I was trading Bitcoin consistently because this is when the bull market was going crazy. I had 2 different Amazon and Walmart stores because, again, this is when the whole passive income through Amazon and Walmart stores was a thing. Needless to say, I lost over $60,000, $70,000 with those dumb investments because they never worked, which I'm sure some of you watching this can probably relate to those Amazon days. They were a lot of fun and just a huge headache. And then to wrap it all up, I had people hitting me up asking for done-for-you agency services that I was selling between $20,000 and $30,000 per service. So needless to say, I was doing a lot at this time, and I kept thinking in my head, the more I do, the more money I'll make. Well, what ended up happening was 2022, it all came to a crashing burn. And it started with the solar agency. Fulfillment for the solar agency just got shot. Like, it just went downhill. I think it just kept getting more and more competitive. Prices increased, and basically the business just crashed and crumbled. It was a moment in my life where I just was doing so much different things that I had to realize and really figure out what I wanted to do. So that moment when the solar agency kind of crashed, I had this moment where I was just done with everything. I was so burnt out and I just didn't want to do anything. So I shut down my consulting. I shut down the other agency, and I gave the solar agency 100% to my business partner because I was like, hey man, like, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. This is all you. I got to figure out what I want to do. And honestly, I'll never forget that 4 months was probably the hardest 4 months of my entire life. It was harder than starting my business. And I'll never forget, there was a moment I was living in this place in Miami and there was this hot tub. And I remember going out there. It was at the end of the day. And I just remember like just falling in the hot tub and submerged in the water. Like, I had this thought in my head. I'm like, I don't want to get up. Like, I just want to be done. Like, it was a very, very dark moment in my life. I'm not a suicidal person. I don't have thoughts like that. Like, it was just a moment in my life where I was like so burnt out and so overwhelmed that I don't think enough people talk about that in the space because, mental health is really a huge thing in the space. And I haven't really shared that with many people, if anybody, but like, it was a moment where I just didn't care. I just wanted to be done. I think that was kind of a breaking moment where when I just finally let go of everything, that everything kind of just came to me and the answers came to me. And what I did was a couple days later, I posted something on my Instagram story because I was branding myself at the time and still had a lot of followers. And I posted on there a old campaign that I did for a client for a DM campaign talking about the results. And it was crazy. So many people started reaching out asking for questions about it. So sure enough, I did what any smart person would do. I doubled down on that and built an entire business around Instagram DM ads and teaching people how to run ads. And I called it Authority Income Accelerator. So this was March 2022, actually thinking about it. And that really picked up a lot of momentum fast. And I hit Joe back up. I was like, hey dude, we're growing fast. I did from like 0 to like 30, 40K a month by myself. Are you still doing the agency? You wanted to sell? He's like, yeah, I'm kind of shutting down the agency. He's like, yeah, I'd love to sell. So, me and Joe, we always joke I'm the Kobe, he's the Shaq. Like I throw him the alley oops, he dunks it. And that's how it was. He brought him on board and we started growing really fast. From there, it was me, Joe, and Alexa. Alexa was, I don't even know how I got hooked up with Alexa, but he was somebody that just really wanted to work with me, and he was in college at the time. So I taught him how to set. So Alexa was doing the setting, Joe was doing the sales, and I was building the fulfillment and managing clients and doing CEO tasks, right? So we did all that going into 2022. It was just a 3-person team and we built it up pretty quickly. And then going into 2023, it was kind of like rocket ships. And actually backtracking real quick, the end of 2022, when I had that burnout phase, one of the things I came to realize was I needed to get out of Miami. I left Miami and moved to Tampa. Me and my girlfriend did at the time. And it wasn't because there was anything wrong with Miami. I love Miami, but for me, I needed mental space. And Miami is a very loud, crowded place. And for me to operate at my full potential, I needed to leave. And that was the best decision I did, because me and my girlfriend moved to Tampa together, and we actually got my brother to move in with us at the time because he was running a business too. And we all just started grinding, and it was the most mental clarity I've ever had in a very long time, and gave me the space to really grow this business. So at the time, it was me, Joe, and Alexa running this business. It was right after I moved to Tampa, literally a week after, there was a big hurricane warning and said, well, Tampa is about to get completely annihilated. You need to get the fuck out of here. So we left Tampa to go to Orlando, and funny enough, the hurricane actually missed Tampa but hit Orlando, so we literally left the safe space to go to where it got hit. So at this point, I built a team, and within about 10 months, Authority Income Accelerator did over $1 million cash collected. And then now fast forwarding into 2023, I was 100% focused on AIA. I said no to everything else and anything else. I'm not even kidding. I had people offering me $30,000 up front to build them an agency, and I would say no to it because I finally understood the power of focus. And I think this is something that all entrepreneurs struggle with, and the ones that once they tap into this reach ridiculous levels that they never even thought was possible. Because for me, at this point, our biggest month we did was around $240,000, and I would not be able to do that if I wasn't 100% focused on one thing. Which brings me to where we're at now. We ended 2023 with one of our record years, and going into 2024, our goal is to be doing $500,000 months. And I truly believe with the team that we have now, there's no reason that we can't do that. And the coolest part behind all of this is I'm documenting all of it on this YouTube channel, and I actually put together everything inside a free course 100% for free. The link will be down below if you want to get access to that. But if you want to stay up to date with the journey, the ride, lessons learned, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe for future updates, and I'll see you in the next video.